Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Prepare for takeoff.
It is a great movie. It's not anything that is, I say it's a great movie. It's a good movie. It's not anything that's, oh wow, this is amazing. It's just an action movie done well.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. I would say great, honestly.
Yep.
I think that Bob Odenkirk does a really, really good job in it. I think that there's an argument to be made that this movie might be better than John Wick. Hutch, who is the title character, is much more interesting, in my opinion, than John Wick.
Yep.
Who is
Agreed.
Sort of a wet noodle a little bit. He's fine, right? I mean, like especially that first movie, it is really good. But I like that this does a lot of the same things that John Wick does, but in a much cooler, at times, and much more like grounded and interesting way, right?
Yeah. Where
John Wick is all sort of about this like world building and building out all of this other stuff, and then like he's kind of just this very like static character in the John Wick series. Like he doesn't change a whole lot. Like he's just John Wick throughout the whole thing. Hutch is in one place at the beginning, and by the end he's in a very different place, right?
Yes, he is.
He gets a character arc in his movie, which is awesome, right? It's not really just a revenge story. It's something a little bit different and something
motivation,
a little more,
backstory.
Yeah.
Intentions, so many different things with his character.
I mentioned this to you when you told me you'd watch it, but Christopher Lloyd, who plays his dad, is probably my favorite character. I think Bob Odenkirk, Hutch, is awesome.
Right.
I absolutely love that, but there was something about seeing like Doc from Back to the Future playing this like retired FBI agent, and that we're gonna spoil this, by the way. If you at this point, hang on. At this point, if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's great. We're gonna get into spoilers after this, so
yes,
just because
you've been warned.
People on the internet go crazy when you don't warn them ahead of time, so we'll do you that justice and send you on your way if you haven't seen it yet. Go watch it. It's like an hour and a half, and then you can come back and you can listen to the rest of this. Anyway, there's that scene where they go to kill his dad when the two Russians go to kill his dad in the in the thing, and he pretends like he's sleeping, and he catches them both off guard. And then the attendant wakes up at the old people's home, and he comes upstairs, and he's like holding the one guy. The guy's got this big bullet wound in his chest, and he's like, oh, what's his? Anyway, he's like, oh, you just turn down your shows or whatever.
The TV, yeah.
That part, the first time I watched it, I was like, that part. I mean, obviously I was sold, but there was something about that part that really got me. I was like, man, this movie's good.
Das Fernanda.
Dude, I enjoy in the beginning where, okay, so for those who don't know, you don't find out until later in the movie that he's a retired auditor for the Alphabet Agency. So basically he's a highly skilled, like better than assassin killer, right? He's the guy that you don't want to be seeing.
Yeah.
And, it does a backstory to where there's this guy he was supposed to kill that he ends up letting live. And then he goes to visit the guy in Boise, Idaho, or wherever, finds out he has a family. He's like, I want that. And so he's in the beginning of the movie, what you see is that he's with his family and all that stuff. And their house ends up getting broken into, and he doesn't kill the two people because he notices that the gun that they have isn't loaded because it's a revolver and he can tell. And so he just lets them go away. His family gets his oldest son gets kind of mad at him for it. And so he has, but basically this pent up, you can tell he lives a mundane life and he's just not happy with his life. And so he goes, finally, when he realizes that his daughter's kitten bracelet or whatever it is in the house, he uses that as an excuse to go and find them. Goes and finds them and realizes that the reason why they stole everything, did everything, is because their baby has issues, is on oxygen machine and stuff like that. And so he gets mad at himself for breaking into their house and doing all that. And then he gets on a bus.
Hang on. We have to talk about the bus.
Uh-huh.
The bus and the final action set piece in the warehouse are fantastic. And I would probably rank the bus a little bit higher, just because it is so brutal. And like the way he handles the situation where he like locks everything and he pulls his revolver out and he drops all of the bullets out of it. I know. And he's like, I am gonna mess you up. And they're all like, "Hurrah." And then he just goes to town. And it's so, I mean, like okay, go ahead.
But he still gets hurt in it, right?
Yes.
Like he's not just invincible. He's still taking on 5 guys,
he's
right?
Not a Mary Sue.
Yes.
It's realistic, if you will. Like he gets hurt bad.
Yep.
Literally, he gets stabbed in the side at one point, and then like he's like pulling the knife out of his side or whatever, and they're all looking at him like, "Oh no, what have we gotten ourselves into, dude?" Oh my gosh, and then he gets thrown out of the bus window about halfway through the fight, and he gets up and he dusts himself off. And he just goes right back in, and they're like, "Come on,
dude." Okay, so even before all that, when he's on the bus and he sees these Russian dudes coming, and they come in and they're rude and obnoxious to people, and then they're trying to intimidate and harass this woman, right? But before that, he's like, it is said that when God closes one door, another door opens, and then he smiles.
Yep.
I'm like, that is too good.
They say God doesn't close one door without opening another. Please, God, open that door.
It's really got a dark sense of humor too.
Yeah.
Like he basically bashes out most of the teeth of one of those Russian guys, and the Russian guy's, "How are my teeth? Is it okay? How bad is it?" It's so good. Oh man. Yeah, I think the whole setup of him being just so pathetic, right? He's so down and out at the beginning. They do a really good job of doing subtle things to show you this too. It's not just in your face like, oh, he's in this terrible place in his life, right? So one of the shots that you see pretty early on is like he and his wife are in bed together, and she has this like wall of pillows up between the two of them, and you're immediately, what's going on, right? The story is told in a way that you don't get in a lot of modern movies and television, where they know the audience is smart enough to realize what's going on if you just show it to them.
Yep.
Instead of his wife being like, "You're pathetic." Like I think his kid does a little bit, which is fine. Like that makes sense in the context that like his teenage son would be the one to vocally express how he feels about him. Yeah. And of course his daughter still sees him as like her dad, right? Like this kind of like perfect individual, like who can't do anything wrong. And then the wife is just so completely disconnected from everyone else. It's like a great setup to get him back into this place where he essentially earns his family back through this sort of like trial that he goes through. And obviously the way that he goes about everything is one thing or whatever, but the like he's not like a morally like good dude, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he worked for the CIA. He took out tons of people, right? But then you get him set up against this like Russian mob that is clearly way worse, right? And it just works as such a good story leading up to that. Bob Odenkirk was a great cast because of the way that he looks. He looks like an unassuming 50-year-old, right? And that's exactly like the way that oh my gosh, they just knew what they were doing, and it's very nice to see people knowing what they're doing.
And they execute it well, right? It's no dangling keys. It's not, a fantastic CGI, all this stuff, like, and everything.
Yeah.
It's a story told well, characters done well, just all of it. I enjoyed it. It's fun too. It keeps you going. It's not boring in any parts. It's from the minute it begins to the minute it ends. It's spot on.
It hooks you. You can't help but watch it.
Yep. And it's not overly complicated. They know what they're doing, know what story they're telling, and they execute it.
Yep. And you believe that he is who he is, which is so important, right? And part of that going back to the fact that he's not a Mary Sue, but he's good at what he does.
nor is he undermined, right? He's not seen
No.
as stupid, as an idiot. They don't do all these various side plots, these 7 different side plots of what's going on.
Yeah, there's enough of that family drama to push the story forward without it being overbearing or like, again, him always just constantly being undermined by the people around him.
Right.
That really doesn't happen. And it's funny because this movie is almost like the antithesis of like that kind of character, because he starts there. That's where he is at the beginning, and the whole idea is that it's his journey out of that, like going back to who he really is, and being there for his family and protecting his family and remembering like what that's like. And it's weird because it actually has a lot of that sort of like family values thing where it's like there's a bit of this underlying message about like a core family unit and why it's important to have like your father be the protector and having the 2-parent household there, and him like caring for his kids. Like Hutch is literally the opposite of almost every other male character you get in modern Hollywood, and it's so cool to see. It's like, thank you. And this movie came out in 2021. Like, it came out in March of 2021.
Man.
And so it's like, I don't know how this got made. I'm glad it did. It's getting
flew in under the radar, but it is great.
Yeah. They're writing a sequel right now. It hasn't been greenlit. I don't even know if it's actually going to happen. There's part of me that's like, maybe it doesn't need to. Like, maybe just leave it where it is. I don't know what other story you're going to try to tell. Like, his arc is done. Like, you can't really. He's already become the person.
Unless you're just going to retell the same story.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
Yeah, man. And like, this movie flew under the radar, and The Last Duel did.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's better that way to some degree, I think. I know, it's all about making money and all that, but sometimes these things not getting to the height of popularity is the best thing for them, and for them to find an audience afterwards, because it kind of gets to maintain its purity, if you will.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I know what you mean.
It's kind of like, I love Equilibrium. Equilibrium had the same problem. It came out pretty close to The Matrix, got completely overlooked because of The Matrix, and so they never made a sequel. But it's something that when you show people that movie, even now, they're like, this is great. Yeah. And that's kind of something that's so cool about the stuff that gets overlooked.
And it's okay to make a standalone movie.
Yes. I wish that was the case. Yeah. Write a movie, put it out, be happy with your work, and then maybe try to ride off like the success of a movie into another movie rather than doing that's. I mean, that was one of the things Edgar Wright was always pretty good at. Is that he, up until, I guess they're trying to make a sequel to Baby Driver, but until now, he'd never done a sequel. And he
Baby
still
Driver's
technically, he still technically hasn't made a sequel because we haven't gotten Baby Driver 2 yet. But I mean, he's pretty prolific in his career. I mean, he's made eight or nine movies, I think. And he hasn't done a sequel, and that's almost unheard of in the industry. But yeah, I love Nobody. I'm very happy with it. It's something that will probably be added this is the kind of movie, legitimately, that you add to your collection alongside like Terminator 2, Alien and Aliens, like all those action movies from the 80s, and then like the stuff, The Matrix, Lord of the Rings.
The Kindergartner.
Yeah, like the kind of movies that you're like, these are the things that if people want to watch a movie, this is something that I will always recommend. It's like, oh, you've seen this other stuff? Have you seen Nobody? Because I know you probably haven't. It's just one of those movies.
Completely agree with you. It's right up there with Equilibrium. All of them.
Yeah.
Who the fuck are you?
Me? Me, I'm nobody.